Okay. The board members who will hear your case tonight are, to my right, we have Mr. Truslow, Mr. Brown, Mr. Seidel, and hopefully Mr. Neal will show up here shortly. And to my left, Mr. Jordan. Staff members that are present are Genesis Clark, Kyle Foster, and Jenny Working, and we have Kelvin Hugie, the BZA attorney. I am Ross Nelson. I'm not normally the chair tonight, so please bear with me as I muddle my way through this process. Because of the hearing tonight is a public fact-finding meeting, we are in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and SC Code 62970. 15 days prior to this hearing, an announcement was printed in the Post and Courier. A sign was posted on or near the designated property, and a notice was mailed to the applicant or the applicant's representative, to property owners within at least 300 feet of the property, and to parties in interest. Persons, organizations, and the news media that have requested declaration of our meeting have also been notified. Board members, the meeting notes from the January 6, 2025 public hearing were sent to you. Are there any changes? And I believe there may have been.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and correct them.
Okay.
When I did those minutes, there were two versions going on. It was a VPN issue, but I will fix them and bring them back in March.
So we'll defer the minutes approval to the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
No worries. All right, so the Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body that has final decision-making authority on appeals of zoning-related administrative decisions. The BZA is authorized to hear and decide appeals only on zoning-related matters where it is alleged there is an error in any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by an administrative official in the administration or enforcement of any zoning-related regulations. A 2/3 vote of the quorum present is required to overturn the decision of the planning director in an appeal. A special exception is an exception issued by the BZA authorizing a particular use in a specified location within a zoning district upon demonstrating that such use complies with all conditions and standards specified by the Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance, also referred to as ZELDAR. The BZA must find that the special exception request meets all 6 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant the special exception. A simple majority is required to grant a special exception. A variance is a relaxation by the BZA of a dimensional regulation of the ordinance where such action will not be contrary to the public interest and where, owing to conditions particular to the property and not the results of actions or situations of the applicant, a literal enforcement of this code would result in unnecessary and undue hardship. And such variance is consistent with Section 6-29-800 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina, Title 6, Chapter 29. The BZA must find that the variance request meets all 7 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant the variance. A simple majority is required to grant a variance. Our purpose tonight is for interested parties to be heard in order to assist the board in gathering evidence pertinent to each case. If the members of the BZA feel the need for further information to clarify a case, the board has the authority to subpoena witnesses. It must be understood that the rules of your neighborhood or subdivision are binding and that we can take no action that will negate their jurisdiction over your property. In addition to your testimony, the board has been presented written information submitted to the staff by the applicant or the applicant's agent for each case. This information is now considered to be evidence and is entered into the permanent record of this body. It is assumed that it is complete, true, and accurate. In addition, we have been presented data assembled by staff for the purpose of clarifying the location and the application's effect on surrounding property. Our board is empowered to approve with conditions, or to deny a special exception or variance request. We are also authorized to defer a case should there be a need to obtain additional information. The BZA's final decision will be mailed within 10 working days of this public hearing. It will be mailed via certified mail to applicants and via U.S. mail to neighbor and community interest notice list. If an applicant's request is approved, the applicant should contact the Charleston County Zoning and Planning Department staff to discuss the next steps in the process. Variances and special exceptions granted this evening are valid for 12 months after this meeting, and a 1-year extension may be granted only if construction or development has commenced or is being diligently pursued. However, if an applicant's request is disapproved, and if the applicant wishes to appeal the decision of this board concerning the case, appeals must be addressed to the Circuit Court. SC Code 629-820 states that the appeal must be filed by the applicant within 30 days after the decision of the board is mailed to them. Failure to file an appeal within the time limit deprives the court of the jurisdiction to hear the matter. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, everything said in this meeting must be complete, true, and accurate. All of the information provided to the BZA is considered evidence, and this board may certify contempt of circuit court if false statements are made, either writing or orally. So each person who wishes to address the board will be sworn in by the BZA secretary before they provide testimony or evidence. In order to expedite the procedure, those willing to speak will please stand as a group, and Ms. Working will administer the oath.
Please stand and raise your right hand. I will say the oath, and you can say, "I do." I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I do. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now call each case by number. Staff will present facts pertinent to the case, limited to 5 minutes. I will then call the applicant. The applicant will stand and state his or her name and current address for the record before presenting testimony pertinent to the case, again, limited to 5 minutes. I will then ask for all those speaking either in support or in opposition to the case, and they will follow the same procedure for identifying themselves and are limited to 2 minutes each. The applicant will then have a chance to reply to any opposition, limited to 2 minutes, and then the BZA will make a motion to close the case to the public. Finally, the BZA will make a motion concerning the application, stating specific findings of fact and conclusions of law. Tonight, we have 6 new business public hearing cases. Ms. Working, can you please introduce the first new business case, case number BZA 12-24-00834?
Yes. This is the 6th case on the agenda, but they're requesting to be deferred. The next available agenda is April. Their arborist could not attend tonight. If you'd like to call them up, we could do that real quick.
Is the applicant for this case present? If you would state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. Bob Almiral. I'm at 1421 Appling Drive in Mount Pleasant. I work for Revere Group. And unfortunately, we've been working very closely with Ms. Working, Mr. Foster, on the site. Unfortunately, our arborist for the project is out of the country, and the applicant has requested if we could defer because they would like the arborist here when we do go in front of the board.
Okay. Well, board members, we have a request to defer this case. Are there any questions for the applicant before we entertain this motion?
Need a motion?
I need a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion to defer made by Mr. Jordan in a second. So we got a motion that's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. All right. I don't know where my gavel went.
Thank you, sir.
You're good. Ladies and gentlemen, if you were here for that case, it will be reheard in April. We thank you for your attendance and hope you can make it for the next time this is heard.
Okay.
Ms. Working.
The first new business case is BZA 12-24-00829. The applicant and property owner is Julian Hodgman of Bengal Rock LLC. The property is located at 1546 Little Rock Boulevard on James Island. It's a special exception request to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density residential zoning district. TMS number 33415000096. The subject property and surrounding properties are located in the low-density residential R4 zoning district. The 0.15 acre property contains a single-family residence with 3 bedrooms that was constructed in 2005 per Charleston County records. The applicant would like to rent 3 bedrooms and will provide 5 parking spaces pursuant to the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. Parking requirements. The maximum number of guests allowed will be 6. The property is not owner occupied, therefore the property is not eligible for limited home rental LHR. This is the site plan and then the Zeldar requirements, the 300-foot radius map, aerial, photographs of the property. We posted the property on January 15th, 2025. surrounding properties, and then the Little Rock Boulevard. Again, the site plan showing the house and the parking spaces, the tenant notice, and the plat. Regarding the approval criteria, we stated that it may meet 1, 2, and 3. The board may approve with conditions or deny the request based on the BZA's findings of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. If the board decides to approve the application, we have 4 suggested conditions. 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the STRP limited site plan review process. 2, the use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. 3, this property shall be used as a short-term rental for no more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year. And 4, the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that tenants comply with the Charleston County Noise Ordinance. And we did get 3 comments in opposition. And just a little history that in 2021, this board approved an EHR at 1550 Little Rock, and that's the adjacent property. And then there was a limited home rental property that at 1526, and that was between the years of 2019 and 2021, but that one is no longer active. Have any questions?
All right, board members, do we have questions for staff? Mr. Sutto?
Mr. Chairman, is the property is the property you mentioned that is now a short-term rental on the right or left of this property?
I have one for him.
It's parcel ending in 95, so to the right, if you're facing.
To the right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then the LHR, I did look and we didn't receive any, there weren't any formal complaints, but I believe the one that was referenced in some of the letters was the LHR. And that one was on parcel 101. Let's see if you can see that. So further up to the front of the street.
And ladies and gentlemen, we do have monitors in front of us, so if we don't turn around, it's because we're looking at the monitors and that we can see in our direct line of sight. Mr. Seidel, did you have any other questions? Any of the other board members have questions for staff?
I had a question.
Mr. Truslow?
Thank you. I'm looking at the photographs of top looking down, and it looks like there's just a shockingly little space between the house and immediately one to the left. What is the explanation for that, if I understand correctly?
It's,
Not this photograph that we have, it's from an aerial.
Oh, I'm sorry.
With that one,
Okay.
that one there.
Yeah, that's just the layout of the subdivision, but it meets the R4 requirements. Oops, sorry.
And of course, you can't see there, but it's fenced. There's at least there's a fence between the two houses.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Where are the cars? Where is there space for 5 vehicles, or however many are allowed?
Yeah, in the front,
It's the last drawing, or next to last drawing.
and
That's
3 in the front and 2 behind the one to the right.
Negative.
that's
Now they have it laid out.
yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Seidel?
are there any requirements with regard to parking or driveways between property? How close to the property line they may be? No.
No, there's not.
Okay.
As long as it's on the property.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Are the neighbors okay with that? Where they're just the cars are literally going to be right beside the property line?
I have not heard anything from that neighbor. I believe that's the one that I said that got the approval in 2021 from the board.
All right. Thank you.
All right, if we have no other questions for staff, we will now entertain, if you would state your name and address, and then tell us why we should approve your request.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. So my name is Julian Hodgman. I own and live at 1546 Little Rock Boulevard. I've been living there for about 7 months. it's been great so far, and definitely made quite a few friends in the neighborhood and the block and so forth. I do spend a couple weeks a year back up in New York, and then sometimes back in Europe. I've got family there, and then I also do a little bit of business back in New York. So my thought process was when I am out of town for those couple weeks, try to make a couple dollars off of Airbnb and VRBO. Of course, I want to be mindful of not only rules and regulations, but also making sure that neighbors and other friends that I've made on the block, feel comfortable as well. But that's kind of where I am right now.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Board members, do you have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Jordan?
Yes, sir. Let's just say it's 2 a.m. and your neighbors are upset with your tenant. You're in Europe. Who do they call?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of my close friends is kind of my handyman, I guess, call it. He's helped me around the house. He lives on Bruce Street in James Island, so maybe 2.5 miles away. And he's been kind enough to say, hey, listen, when you're out of town, if you need help on site, I'll be available.
And how long will it take him to get there?
Without traffic, maybe 4 or 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Mr. Neal?
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chair, for being late. So I think the comments here that my fellow board members and these people in the public are trying to show is the concern of the disruption to the neighborhood. So I was wondering if, A, you have had any meetings with, well, let me back up. I'm sure there's no homeowners association for this group, right? Little Rock.
Correct, there is not, sir.
So I was wondering if you've reached out to any of the people that have made the public comments or making available your information as a extension bridge to try to keep things peaceful as much as possible. And also to follow up on my fellow board members' comments about a property manager, having some type of sign on your house or somewhere, property management concerns, contact this number would probably help things. If you can expand on some things that you can do and or promise to do or things like that?
Absolutely. So maybe on I think the first part of your question. So I just become pretty friendly with a good number of folks on the block, and then some people I've just kind of spoken to in passing because they've seen the sign that's up in my home now. And I think kind of one of the ways I've hopefully gotten folks comfortable is I definitely plan to screen tenants. I come back and this is where I live when I'm not in town. So my intent is definitely to screen tenants and make sure that no funky folks or late night people, I would say, kind of younger folks, are at my home. That's certainly my intent. I've also exchanged numbers with some of the folks that I don't know just so they feel comfortable, extent they need to reach out to me. And then in terms of, I think, the second part of your question for property management, I think I would be relying on my one friend who I mentioned, my handyman, who's probably 4 or 5 minute drive away. But I can certainly, I think within the listing on Airbnb and VRBO, not only list my number, but I think also his as well.
Yeah. Follow up if I may, Mr. Chair. Something like that to show a little bit more who's responsible for.
Yeah.
I mean, screening tenants is a great thing, but you're going to also take tenants that are going to want to pay and things like that. So that's hard to control. But I think if you can show that when people are there and there is a problem, if they don't have to search around and try to chase you down and go online, if they could have something that's pretty easily, any issues, contact this person, it'd be easier. That would make me feel better. Thank you.
That's a good idea. Absolutely.
And I'll add to what Mr. Neal is saying. Applicants that have been successful requesting this type of extended home rental have also offered up their number to their neighbors, so their neighbors could call them in case there's an issue that may need to be addressed.
Absolutely.
Unless it's a neighbor complaining.
Yeah. Any other questions for the applicant? All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate your testimony. So you can go ahead and sit down.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else here to speak in support of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? All right. Well, we will close this case to the public. And at this point, are there any additional questions for staff? All right, is there a member that would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion.
All
to
right, Mr.
approve.
Trueslow.
I'll make a motion to approve in this instance. This is a special exception request to establish a short-term rental property, extended home rental. In general terms, and I'm going over some of this as the first case, we do the same thing in every single case. We go through the same process, but I'm going to state it here and we'll adopt by reference, I'm sure, the analysis. In general terms, application is governed by Zelder, Chapter 6 and Article 6.1 et sequata in particular. The matter has been well presented. Proper notice has been given. Jurisdiction is proper. The property is at 1546 Little Rock on James Island. This is a low residency R4 zoning district. In this quasi-judicial setting, we're not allowed to substitute our own personal judgment, what we might want to do for what the law says. We've got to follow the law. In that vein, the process is set forth in Article 6.8, which governs our decision, and in particular 3.65. We've got a criteria that we go by. I know that's a mouthful, but we've got to just set forth this publicly, so if there's an appeal, everybody will understand what we did and why and on what basis. Here, there are three criteria that we must utilize under Article 6.8.2C, 1 through 3. The first, I'm going to look at it fell off, but it's compatible. Mine fell off my screen. But in general terms, it's compatible with the existing uses and the general welfare of the immediate community will not be adversely affected. Adequate provision is made and exists for such items as setback that I asked about, or setbacks on the sides, fencing, buffering, to protect the adjacent properties from possible adverse influences. One of the questions, very good questions asked about noise or disruption. We're satisfied that this has been addressed. We've also considered traffic, congestion, trash pickup, parking, and similar matters. While the parking isn't ideal, it meets the law and complies with criteria too. Number 3, we look at the applicable rules, regulations, and laws and standards contained in the ordinance, and all of that has been met. We've considered everything that staff has said. And number 3, criteria 3, it complies again with all applicable laws and meets the conditions of Article 3.6. Therefore, I move to approve this request, provided the 4 conditions recommended by staff that are of record are that this is contingent upon meeting those. I can state those if necessary. Otherwise, I would adopt them and incorporate them by reference, and that's my motion.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second by Mr. Neal. So we have a motion that's been made by Mr. Trueslow, a second by Mr. Neal. Is there any discussion? All right, well, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries unanimously, so there are none opposed. So, sir, your application has been approved. The final decision will be mailed to you via certified mail within 10 working days, and you should contact planning zoning staff to discuss the next steps in the process. Thank you for your time this evening. All right, Ms. Working, second case of the night, BZA 1224-00830.
Okay. The applicant property owner, Genisa, I don't think that's right. Genisa Liguana of Grace Sac LLC is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental, EHR, in the special management S3 zoning district at 1417 Tarrington Lane TMS number 557-0000158 in the east area of Charleston County. The subject property and surrounding properties are located in the Special Management S3 zoning district. Tarrington Lane is a dirt road located off of Rifle Range Road. A single-family home that will contain 2 bedrooms is currently being constructed on the 0.55 acre subject property. The applicant would like to rent the 2 bedrooms and will provide 4 parking spaces pursuant to the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance parking requirements. The maximum number of guests allowed will be 6. The property is not owner occupied, therefore the property is not eligible for limited home rental LHR. It's the ordinance requirements, the 300-foot radius map, aerials. Here's some photographs of the property under construction. Tarrington Lane and Rifle Range, and then the site plan, the tenant notice, and some elevations, floor plans, and the plat. We posted the property on January 14th, 2025. And regarding the 3 criteria, we stated it may meet 1, 2, and 3. The board may approve of conditions, or deny the request, or defer the case if additional information is deemed necessary. In the event the board decides to approve the application, we have 4 conditions. 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the STRP limited site plan review process. 2, the use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. 3, the property shall not be used as a short-term rental for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year. And 4, the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinance. And for this case, we did receive 2 public comments in support.
Thank you, Ms. Working. We have questions for staff. Mr. Neal?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Working, I'm looking, can you pull up the plat that shows, or maybe the aerial?
Okay.
Maybe the aerial. Yeah, right there. All right, so this property is on the dirt road, or parallels to Dirt Road, Tarrington.
Right.
Is that a county road?
Yes.
Okay, so the house in front of it that is perpendicular or parallels Rifle Range,
Right.
that's not part of this property.
No.
And that property, obviously a separate TMF number. If I'm looking at the future site, the proposed site plan, they've got a future building on it. So that's
Yes.
number 23, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
The future
So
ADU.
the future is not being built right now. This is just a 2-bedroom building. I mean, this might be better for the applicant, but.
Yeah, that's correct, though. Yes.
But the 2-bedroom that they're saying maximum occupancy is going to be 6, only has to have 4 parking spaces. But if they build the future building and come back with some more, that's where they're going to have some additional parking and stuff?
Right, correct.
So this permit would only be for this building, not the future building?
Correct. Right.
Okay, and they'd have to come back to us,
Right.
right? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good questions, Mr. Neal. Mr. Jordan?
Yes, I'd like to ask the same question you heard me ask earlier.
Mr. Jordan, we're not at the public.
Well, I thought you said we weren't.
No,
All right, but
still-
anyway,
still staff.
you know what's coming. I'm a little gung-ho.
Any other questions for Ms. Working? All right. Well, now it's time for the applicant to shine. So if you would state your name and address for the record and tell us why we should approve your application, and be prepared for Mr. Jordan when he's ready to ask his question.
Can you hear me okay? All right. So my name is Janitza Laguna, and the property address is 1417 Tarrington Lane. Currently, my husband, landscape owner, business owner, me, accounting, and we're not getting any younger, so we're looking for an alternative way to supply for our family. So we're asking for your approval to do short-term rentals. The property will have 2 bedrooms. It will normally be just 4 guests, but we are asking for 6 if it's possible. There will actually be 6 parking spaces available. As an experienced short-term rental, because we have had the privilege of managing another 2 units of Airbnb, we have 5 years of experience doing this, And we feel very confident that we have firsthand knowledge on the benefits and operational considerations that are involved with this. Over this period of 5 years, we have hosted 585 families that have come to visit Charleston from diverse backgrounds, geographic locations, and still consistently we're providing positive guest experiences while contributing to the vibrancy of our community. Challenges, they're inevitable, and they arise with every property management. We have established systems to address when issues do come about. As of right now, out of 585, there's only one that I can think of that challenged us during this 5-year period, but it was handled in a way that it did absolutely no disruptions to our neighbors. I do believe converting Tarrington into a short-term rental for the time being will be very substantial, and it'll be advantageable for everybody in the community. Yes, it will provide for our family, but it also provides for maintenance of the building and for the future part, as you notice that we are hoping to do in the years to come. All right, so I'm confident that my experience and with God's help and the 2 supporting neighbors that actually send in the information, we can successfully manage this property for years to come.
Well, thank you, Ms. Laguna.
Thank you.
Let me see if any of my board members have questions for you. And I'm going to go ahead and start with Mr. Jordan, because we know. No questions.
Yes, so it's 2 a.m. in the morning, and the neighbors upset, who they gonna call?
Me,
You?
I'm there. Actually, the one incident that I mentioned that I can remember, she literally texted me at 12 noon because she saw a roach in the house. And I was like, are you not? They were from North, so they were not familiar with that. And yes, at 12 o'clock at night, I got up out of bed and I actually got them calmed down, and I fumigated the location. So she was at ease. She actually stayed the rest of the time that they had rented it out. But was it a challenge? Yes, but it was handled very, very quickly.
Well, they never heard of a palmetto bug.
I mean, I had to do the search and everything to show them this is common in the South. So yes, you're right.
So how long did it take you to get over there?
It was less than 5 minutes. It was, and they were happy at the end of the whole thing. But
Thank you.
Mr. Neal?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned that you have other short-term rental properties. Are they all in the county?
in the town of Mount Pleasant,
In the town of Mount Pleasant?
Not county.
Where do you live?
in the town of Mount Pleasant.
Town of Mount Pleasant. Approximately how far away from this property?
Exactly 12 minutes with some traffic. So,
North of Alapalms Connector, south of Alapalms Connector?
Close to the Coleman Boulevard area.
Okay, so, yeah, I live in Mount Pleasant, so
Okay.
I know the area very well.
Okay, good.
This is a Airbnb, VRBO?
Just Airbnb. I have not ventured into VRBO.
Have you reached out to, it looks like if, from the aerial, there was a property owner immediately, wow, I'm not good with directions. I don't know if that's north or west, but it looks like there's, by the plat, there's some homeowners. So have you reached out to any of those homeowners to give your information and contact information? Because that would probably be beneficial. So that-
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
the one right across from us, he does have our text and information. And then there's one that's kind of tucked in from there. He also has our
Yeah.
information. So
The
at
picture I'm
least
looking
two-
at is the one on Rifle Range, the one immediately across on Tarrington, and then there's, looks like a larger one behind it on, I don't know what that, I can't read that address, Cultivation Lane or something.
Correct. So yes, at least two of them do have it. But our goal is to have security cameras as well. So where we can actually monitor constantly to make sure the person who says is coming will be the one that's coming, and make sure that if there is extra high noise levels, that the security system will alert us.
I appreciate that. One of the criteria that we use to pass this or vote on this is basically will not adversely affect the general welfare character of the community, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Correct.
Being proactive and contacting the neighbors so that if there is something that goes on, instead of you just looking at the cameras to say, yeah, it's loud, or something's going on. If you can give them your contact information, it usually makes for a lot better. So if you could agree, I mean, if you could
Yes, sir.
agree to some type of suggestion like that, just on your own, it makes a lot of people feel better.
You got it, 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Mr. Trueslow, did you have a question?
No.
Any other questions from the board? I'll ask how you came up with the name, the Grace Shack LLC.
You're only giving me 5 minutes. It's a lot longer than that.
All right, you got to keep it to 1 minute or less.
So it actually came from the movie The Shack because, long story short, it is God who brought us there. So that's how it came about.
All right.
But it's a God thing.
Okay, very cool. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
All right, is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? All right, we shall now close this to public hearing portion of the case, and I'll ask my board members one more time, do you have any additional questions for staff? All right, well, I will entertain a motion.
I'm prepared to make a motion to approve.
Mr. Trueslow.
In case 12-24-00830, I'll make a motion that we approve this request. I would incorporate by reference comments I made in the previous case that the analysis would be the same. Jurisdiction is proper, notice has been given. The criteria for us to approve are set forth, as Mr. Neal said, in Article 6.8.2C 1, 2, and 3. Those have all been met. This request is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity. I travel down Rifle Range Road past 6 Mile on a frequent basis. I'm familiar with the property, and everyone else is here too, having reviewed a very thorough presentation made by staff, for which we're thankful. It's compatible with the usage. In the vicinity, it won't adversely affect the community. There's been no objection. Number 2, adequate provision is made and has been made for items such as setback, buffering, parking, and to protect against adverse influences. Number 3, and I hope I'm not going too fast, but we did it first on the front end, is that this complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards that apply to us. So I'm confident that this is the proper decision under the circumstances, provided that the 4 recommendations made by staff are acceptable. And I see the applicant nodding her approval. So that's my motion.
We have a motion? I'm going to give Mr. Brown, since he's one of the newer board members, the second.
Right, all right.
All right, so we have a motion that has been made by Mr. Trueslow and a second by Mr. Brown. Is there any additional discussion? All right, well, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Are any opposed? There are none opposed. Motion carries. So your permit or your application has been accepted, and you will receive a final decision by mail, by certified mail, within 10 working days. If you have any additional questions about the process, please contact Planning and Zoning staff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Working, do you have the next case? So we are now at BZA 122400831. And I believe Mr. Trueslow needs to recuse himself from this case.
I need to recuse myself from voting on this or discussing this issue, and the reasons are of record in writing. Thank you. How you doing?
All right. For case BZA 12-24-00831, the applicant and property owner, Jeff Gallman, is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental property, extended home rental EHR, in the Natural Resource Management and our zoning district at 2325 Captain John Hutt Road, which is TMS number 571-13-00005 on Goat Island in Charleston County. The subject property and surrounding properties are located in the Natural Resource Management and our zoning district. The 0.38 acre property contains a single-family residence that was constructed in 2024 per Charleston County records. The applicant would like to rent one bedroom plus a flex room. There are no cars on Goat Island. Parking is provided at the Isle of Palm Marina. The maximum number of guests allowed will be 6. The property is not owner occupied, therefore the property is not eligible for a limited home rental LHR. We visited the site on January 14th, 2025. This is the site plan, the ordinance requirements. Oh, sorry, the 300-foot radius map, aerial, zoomed out aerial, the posting, and then the subject property and adjacent properties. Again, the site plan, and then the tenant notice and the plat. Regarding the 3 approval criteria, we stated that it may meet 1, 2, and 3. The board may approve conditions or deny the request based on the BZA's finding of fact unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the board decides to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the STRP limited site plan review process. 2, the use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. 3, this property shall not be used as a short-term rental for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year. And 4, the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinance. Questions? Okay, go.
Thank you, Ms. Working. First question I would have is, who was allowed to go on the site visit to Goat Island? Very nice. So it was a cold January day, so it might not have been the best day ever.
I think it was a nice day, but yeah, it was pretty cold. I forgot to mention too that you have approved 4 EHRs on Goat Island.
That was my first question.
1 in 2019 and 3 in 2021. And then as far as LHRs, there were 3 active in 2021, but they're no longer active.
Okay. Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'll follow up on the 4 that were there. Were there any noise ordinance issues or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
That you're
no.
aware of? And just to, because I was not here on the board when any of those were previously approved, what's the jurisdictional stuff for Goat Island? I mean, obviously it's in the county or we wouldn't have this in front of us, but there's nothing with Isle of Palms, there's nothing with anything else. Goat Island is all county. Is there any property that have been annexed into anything? Is it 100% all county?
It's county, all county.
So everything is, even though it's an island, there's no access points or regulations that we have to follow for how guests are going to get there? We're just going to drop them in?
How to get there, I'm sorry? Is that
Yeah,
what you
I
said?
mean, how they're going to get there. I mean, I know it's up to the people that are renting this stuff,
Yeah.
but there's no additional landing zones or anything like that we have to
Right,
worry about.
yeah,
right?
typically, there's a parking lot that you'd park your car, and then most people have boat slips
Right.
where they keep their boat. I don't know the situation, if he's including the boat, or if the people will have to bring their own boat. but
Well, that's where I
that's
was
the only
kind
way
of
to get
going,
there.
and this might be something for the homeowner when his time comes up. But I was wondering if there's so many lots on Goat Island and they have parking lot access, now we're going to put more cars in that parking lot access for Goat Island, but there's probably not a Goat Island Homeowners Association, or maybe there is. It seems like we're going to be stretching what's already there. So I'm trying to understand, are there any limitations, or we just take word for it's not a big deal?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm fine for right now, Mr. Chair, but I'm going to have some questions for the applicant, I'm sure.
Yeah, and they do have a dock. It's not showing in the aerial. That kind of threw me off since I didn't get to go on the site visit, but yeah, because it wasn't in, this
Right.
is a 2023, so it's
Right.
it's a new dock.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. That's good for now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Neal. Are there any other questions for staff? All right, well, the applicant is certainly present and here, so if you would state your name and address.
Sure
we
thing.
will
Jeff
hear your
Goldman.
testimony.
I live at 426th Avenue on Isle of Palms, 29451.
All right, tell us why we should approve your application.
Well, as it was stated, this requested use is already a common use on Goat Island. Actually, the first time I ever stayed on Goat Island was as a vacationer. I found 7 listings between Airbnb and VRBO. So again, it is a common use out there. Additionally, I promised to be an engaged property manager. I've got experience managing 2 separate properties over the years. I'll enforce house rules, the max number of guests, the no parties, removal of trash, etc., to be a respectful neighbor. I have personally informed my neighbors of this license request, and in those conversations, they had no issue. They're actually both vacation rental managers, not in those properties, but they manage active vacation rentals. So they had no issue. And, you know, Goat Island's a pretty tight-knit community out there, and I've got a really good relationship with not only my adjacent neighbors, but my surrounding ones. So, you know, I'm going to be very respectful of that.
All right. Well, I'm sure that there are a handful of questions from board members, so I'm going to go ahead and start with Mr. Brown. Okay.
I'll just sort of add on to what he was asking earlier about the parking situation at the marina.
That's correct, yeah.
And do you have a relation, I mean, and this
Yeah,
would be a question
it's
for anybody that's doing an Airbnb out there.
That's right. Yeah, it's
What's the amount
so
of parking and how is that handled
it's
with the marina?
Yeah, it's basically through this. So the Isle of Palms Marina that has pay for parking. So the guests, if they choose to park or launch their boat at the marina, they would pay just via. It's very similar. I had to pay at the Coliseum recently. It's just an app, and you pay there, and so that's how that works. So that being said, I haven't managed a property on Goat Island, but from what I think I know of it, I think a lot of the guests there are boating people, and so they're likely going to have their own boat, and possibly even if they're local, come by boat. So, but there is parking at the marina.
And do you know anything about how many spots are available with, if you start adding more and more parking for more and more Airbnbs?
I don't have a number. I will say recently, if you're familiar with Isle of Palms Marina, they've added more parking down 42nd Avenue going towards the beach. So there's more parking along the road there in addition to what was already at the marina. So I hesitate to give a number. And that parking is used for, people, day boaters launching their boat for the day, or, there is restaurant parking, but if somebody's, going to the restaurant or just hanging out at the marina, because there's a lot of different things there. So I can't say for sure the number or the availability, but they've added to it and, seem to have an ample amount.
And do homeowners have preferred parking or special parking spaces that?
Not on Goat Island. Most, there are a few full-time residents out there. I'd say it's mostly second homes or vacation rentals. A lot of folks have a slip at the Wild Dunes Yacht Harbor, which is kind of down the Morgan Creek there from, like, if you're familiar with, like, Islander 71. So they have their own parking for that. So I would just say most folks that own out there have some sort of park. Like I rent from a owner on the water, on the Intercoastal Waterway side on Isle of Palms, and that's where my boat is in the water, so I can just shoot over. So, there's multiple ways that people are doing it.
And one more question, I'm sorry. It's the house that this is going to be is under construction?
It is. It's, yes.
That's what it looked like in the picture, so I wasn't.
Correct. Yeah. Like we're, I hate to throw the percentage, but yeah, we're building a porch on the front, and it's not fully completed yet. So, but it should be in the next 30 to 60 days.
So it's all brand new house or?
Brand new house.
Adding on, okay.
Brand new house. Yep.
Gotcha.
Mr. Neal?
Yeah, I applaud you for reaching out to the homeowners that are around your home before you actually go operational. And I wish every applicant would do that, because then that's being very proactive. So the only other thing I would add is if you can assist these homeowners that are around you with some type of listing of property manager phone number, so that they're not having to dig through and contact the county saying that we got a problem. It can be more proactive in going directly, a lifeline directly to you, whether it's on the website or on a sign in the yard or something like that. This property's managed by, so-and-so.com, plan, and go from there. So other than that, you've addressed all my concerns I had with parking. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Seidel?
From what you said, Mr. Coleman, the parking was primarily expected to be at the marina. A lot of marinas don't allow overnight parking. Does that marina allow overnight parking?
They do. Yes, sir.
And you've talked to the marina
I've
owner?
not talked to the marina, but I just know that there have been guests that have stayed in part of the marina. And again, it's just, you just have to pay the rate. And as long as you're making the payment, then you're good. So, but I've not checked with the marina specifically to my situation.
Is it an hourly rate they pay?
I don't know. I think it's like like 4, 8. Again, I'm just going on other times that I've used that particular like pay service. So I don't think it's hourly. I think it's more like half day, that type of a thing.
But no restrictions on overnight parking?
No, sir. Not as I'm aware of.
All right.
Mr. Brent?
Talking about the marina, do you know, is the marina a private marina, or is it a public somehow related to the county or city?
My understanding is the city of Isle of Palms owns that land, and then each part, various parts of the marina are leased to the city of Isle of Palms. So there's a marina store, a restaurant, and so, but then there is, parking that is owned by the city of Isle of Palms.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get an understanding of who regulates how many parking spots and, all that kind of stuff. Who's regulating, who's using it, when, how,
Exactly.
overnight. Not
Yes,
overnight.
I'm confident it's run through the city of Isle of Palms, but I don't know the details. But that's my understanding as an Isle of Palms resident that is that the land is owned by the city of Isle of Palms.
We're just going on and on. Sorry, it goes
Looking,
down
looking
rabbit holes.
online, it says parking at IOP Marina is free for residents with a IOP sticker decal. And it says non-residents may pay a flat rate to park. It doesn't say the rate, but
For how long? Well, so,
it's probably a daily fee. or
we
nightly.
always want to make sure with these short-term rentals that there's going to be enough parking on site for, however many cars, and we're not over parking and that kind of thing. So, a concern would be what happens when your guest shows up and there is no parking available. What are they going to do? So that's what I think some of us are just
For sure.
wondering about all that. You're a much different situation than, a regular house
Understood.
with a driveway
Yeah.
on a street.
Yes. Yeah, I guess I would just defer back to that it is a fairly common use with 7 other, active rental listings out there. Again, it's being done, it's currently being done, and the island is, again, there are uses in that regard now, and they have the same, I guess, situation that I would have.
Mr. Neal? We'll come back to
Mr. Chair,
Siddall.
and this might be for our attorney, I mean, if we put a stipulation in the approval that the applicant had to detail the parking to the regulations of that facility, it's not, we're not approving a driveway like we normally do. Guarantee that there is parking available for the tenants and occupants of this place, and at staff level could approve it or something, that they just confirmed it. My original question was based on, does each lot have 2 spots or 4 spots, and are they going to go over? So as long as we can make that type of assessment that there is going to be available parking out there, I think that alleviates the parking issue whatsoever. I don't really know how to do that, or if needed. That's why I'm asking.
Excuse me. I think this situation is a little unique. One, the applicant's not going to be able to control parking at a otherwise public place. And I think putting such a stipulation on the applicant is beyond the scope, because the parking on a Goat Island is not on the property. So I think this is a little unique, and I think to hold the applicant to control parking over an entity that he has no control over is not within the purview of the statute, even as it relates to parking in this situation.
Well, let me follow up, though. Making sure that it's not asking him to get designated spots at the lot. All we're asking is to say that confirm that there is a public lot that they have a right to. And I don't think that's too much of a purview. And he didn't make it as part of his application. It's something very simple of going to the place and just showing that to staff before they get the final permit. I don't think that's outside our purview of making sure that we have.
If you're asking, and I apologize, I mean to cut you off, if you're asking for him to confirm that there is public parking there, I think that's fine.
Okay. That's really all I was going for.
And
that it wouldn't overload it, or
Right, and staff can approve that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Siddall?
Thank you. Mr. McDonald, sorry, there's a lot of parking questions, but this is a unique situation for short-term rental for us. Can they also park boat trailers at this parking lot?
There is boat trailer parking there as well, yes.
Is that separate from the automobile parking?
It's all right there together. It's, there's no, it's all right there in relatively the same area.
So someone who launched a boat in order to use your rental property would have to pay 2 parking, one for the boat and one for the car? Is that?
Well, again, so the boat would presumably be at my property on the dock there.
I'm sorry,
trailer.
I wasn't clear, the boat trailer.
The trailer.
Is that was what would be parked, right?
My understanding, I can verify this, but most of the time you see a car parked with the trailer attached, and there's long, parking spaces to accommodate a car or truck with a trailer attached. So I would think that it would just be one charge. I launched my boat there, and I don't have to disconnect my trailer. There's ample parking for as far as the length of the space to accommodate the car and the trailer.
So let me just to follow up. Are you, when you rent this, are you planning to notify whoever you rent to that this is where they park and how they park, and are you ready for the situations where they say that lot is full and I have no place to park?
Well, I guess kind of starting from the beginning, and I've kind of looked at other listings on Goat Island, other rental listings, Airbnb, VRBO, and it's very clearly stated in all of those listings, this is a by boat only island. You can only get here by boat. So that would definitely be very much on the forefront as I'm talking to potential guests, and let them know about where parking is available. And there are a few residents on Goat Island that will offer like boat taxi services. Again, it's very just as needed type of thing, but there is that option as well. But yes, I would be very clear about the available, where the options are, and just kind of letting them know that if they're coming from out of town and not familiar with the uniqueness of Goat Island, like what how it is, and that there's no bridge. So.
Okay, so a renter beware type.
More or less, but not letting them know and not wanting to surprise anyone, obviously, and let them know that this is a by boat only island.
So a lot of islands that have only no car policies have some arrangement for residents to park on the mainland side, right? But this island does not have anything like that that is specified or for residents.
It does not. There's nothing that I'm aware of at any point now or in the past where there was like a deeded parking space on the mainland side. I'm not aware of that. So most owners that I know there, it varies between, like I said, the yacht harbor at Wild Dunes is a very common spot. Those slips, you can buy them individually and rent them, or like kind of how I have done it with, you identify a homeowner on the land on the Isle of Palm side that has a slip and is willing to rent it to you.
I'm sorry, just one more question. The other, if you've talked to the other people who rent on the island, you've had conversations with them?
Yes, I know a few. I haven't talked to them specifically about some of the questions that you've asked. I'm kind of going on past experience of staying out there myself, but so that certainly would be a viable thing to do.
I just have one follow-up.
All right,
and
thank
this
you.
might be a
Mr.
staff question. How many lots are out there on Goat Island?
Since I had the personal experience to travel out there, it is huge. It is, seriously, it is a lot of space for boats, as well as for the trailers, as well as for the cars if it's attached.
But I'm saying lots, not the parking spots, but lots on the island. Is there 50 homes out there? Is it?
Yeah, 50. Yeah,
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, Mr. Gallman, maybe it would be helpful if you could identify alternative means that folks could access the island. For example, there are many other boat ramps in the Charleston area besides the Isle of Palms Marina, so folks could presumably launch a boat from Rimley Point or from Shem Creek Marina and boat to the island from there. Is that
That's a fair,
safe assumption?
certainly, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a great idea to include in the listing. You know, these are some launch points if you're looking for a place. So absolutely, that could be included in the marketing listing.
Yeah. So just one thing for the board to recognize, there are multiple ways to get to, well, one, somebody that has no experience boating should not be going to Goat Island, although that is within the realm of possibility in this area. But another question would be, are boats available for rent at the Isle of Palms Marina?
There are. They do have boat rentals there, and I haven't confirmed this, but I've heard third hand that they will shuttle people as well back and forth to go. That the dock hands there will shuttle people back and forth if they don't have a boat. But again, I think the ideal renter is someone who's familiar with boats and has a boat, or is savvy with boats.
And presumably that would be part of your vetting process for
Absolutely,
individuals.
100%.
All right. Are there any other questions for the applicant?
That's not me.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? We have lost windows. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition to this application?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got it.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this case to the public and ask my board members if there are any additional questions for staff. All right, there being no more questions for staff, we'll move forward with the motion.
I'll move. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if necessarily is the question for staff or for legal here is,
Thank you, sorry.
because this is a different situation with the parking thing, 50 lots, 60 lots, however many there are,
Can you speak in the microphone? I can't hear a word you're saying.
approve, and if we approve this one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and they're all adding multiple parking spots to this marina, how, if any, responsibility is there for dealing with that?
I'm going to give you the answer that most people who don't practice law will not like. You have to look at each case on its own merit.
Yep.
So you cannot look at them cumulatively. So each case that comes before the board, you look at as a separate case.
Yeah, we got to make sure the parking is okay for this application.
Correct.
I'm making an assumption that it is okay for this situation because we don't have any way of knowing.
Right.
So, which would be the case for any of the other ones on Goat Island. There's no way of knowing if we are or not. I get it. So
Well, we're wading into discussion without a motion being on the floor. So let's get a motion on the floor. Mr. Sato?
In the case of BZA 1224-00831, I make a motion that we approve this application for short-term rental. We have heard testimony and from staff that there are other properties on Goat Island that are short-term rentals, so it is consistent with other uses of property in that area. And also that there, in his application, the applicant spoke to the fact that there were tree and bush buffers between his property and others, and there are no issues with neighbors in terms of impacting the adjacent properties. It complies with all the applicable regulations, laws, and standards, and the applicant has stated that he will be sure that he makes prospective renters aware that you have to come by boat, and will offer alternative information on places to park their boat should the lot at the marina that he's referenced in the beginning be full. So there are also 4 conditions the staff has placed on this application, and I include those in my motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Seidel. Is there a second?
Second.
We got a second by Mr. Neal. Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that motion carries unanimously. So your application has been accepted, or your variance?
Mr. Neal, you mentioned earlier about the applicant confirming that there's at least public parking available.
I didn't need to add it. I'm fine with the way he described it. I appreciate that. No, I'm fine with it.
All right, so your special exception has been granted. You will receive a final decision via certified mail from staff within 10 working days, and then you should contact staff for the next steps in the process. So thank you for your time this evening. Ms. Working is up again for case number 4, which is case 122400832, which is another extended home rental application.
Yes. The applicant and property owner, Robert Louis Bella III, is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental, EHR, in the low-density residential R4 zoning district at 1535 Harborview Road, which is TMS number 424-10-00021 on James Island in Charleston County. The subject property and surrounding properties to the east and west are located in the low-density residential R4 zoning district. Surrounding properties to the south are located in the urban residential UR zoning district and the city of Charleston. Properties to the north are in the city of Charleston's jurisdiction. The property is approximately 0.3 acres and contains a single-family residence with 3 bedrooms that was constructed in 1958 per Charleston County records. The applicant would like to rent 3 bedrooms and will provide 5 parking spaces pursuant to the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance Zeldar parking requirements. The maximum number of guests allowed will be 6. The property is owner-occupied, and the owner has rented the property as a limited home rental LHR since July 2023. LHR permits are limited to 72 days in aggregate per calendar year. We visited the site on January 15th. This is the zoning ordinance requirements and the 300-foot radius. Aerial, I guess I only have one. Aerial. And then the photographs of the posting and the house, Harborview Road, and the site plan, tenant notice, and the plat. Regarding the approval criteria, staff stated that it may meet 1, 2, and 3. The board may approve with conditions, or deny the request. If additional information is deemed necessary, in the event the board decides to approve the request, we have 4 conditions. 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the STRP limited site plan review process. 2, the use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. 3, this property shall be used as a short-term rental for more than, shall not be used as a short-term rental for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year. And 4, the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Working. Or did you have any information about adjacent properties?
No, so on Harborview Road, there's very few properties that are in the county. So I'm not aware of any near here.
And with the LHR that previously existed, were there any complaints received by the county?
No.
All right. Do my fellow board members have any questions for staff? All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Working. The applicant has already come forward, so if you would state your name and address for the record, please do so and tell us why we should approve the application.
All right. My name is Robert Bella. My address is 1535 Harborview Road. I was born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina. I grew up on James Island. I'm very familiar with the area. This house that I was able to purchase was one that I got to live in with 2 roommates for many, many years. I was lucky enough to get the option to buy it at the end, and I started a family of my own, and this has been our house. I take a lot of pride in keeping it nice and being able to share it with others. I'm a very active property manager. I property manage houses out on Kiowa and the surrounding area, downtown as well. This is just my little yellow house on Harborview Road. And other applicants mentioned he calls his handyman when he needs someone to step in. I am the handyman. I'm contractor. If things break, they call me. I'm the one that fixes them. I also have a co-host. There's multiple numbers they can call. In the past, I've had zero issue with noise complaints. I've only ever rented to people who have a good track record, which means they've stayed at prior Airbnbs and have had good reviews from other hosts. That's for me to even look at seeing if I would have them. But yeah, it's been a great experience so far, welcoming all these guests, and I just hope I can do it more.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bella. Do we have questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Seidel?
Mr. Bella, thank you for your comments. So you're going to be the person who will take care of any complaints yourself. How far do you live from, how long does it take you to get to this property?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay, thank you.
I'm in the Ruland Terrace. Is that other?
All right. Any other questions for the applicant? All right. Well, thank you for your time this evening. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? I can't even tell if there's people behind you or not, but is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? All right. We will close this case to the public, and I'll ask my board members if they have any additional questions for staff. I'm going to presume no. And so with that, I will entertain a motion. Mr. Seidel.
Mr. Chairman, in the matter of BZA 1220, in the matter of BZA case 1224-00832, I move that we approve this application for short-term rental. We've heard testimony that the property has been in rental but has had no complaints, and it is consistent with the applicant has lived in this property and knows the neighborhood and the neighbors, and lives only 5 minutes away, so it will not affect the general welfare or character that so it meets that requirement. Provision has been made not to impact the adjacent properties, and we've heard testimony to the fact that he ensures that he only rents to vetted people who have had previous rentals that have had no problems, and thirdly, that it complies with all applicable rules and regulations and standards of the ordinance. And that's with the conditions set by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Seidel. Is there a second? We got a second from Mr. Brown. Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. 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 Again, this motion carries unanimously. So, Mr. Bella, your request for special exception has been approved. You will receive within 10 working days via certified mail the final decision, and you should contact staff for the next steps in the process. Thank you very much for your time this evening. All right, board members, we have one case left. Do you want to push forward and carry through or take a 5-minute recess?
Keep going.
All right, Ms. Working, the last case for the evening, please.
It's America. All righty. The applicant and property owner, Homer Buster Altine, is requesting a variance to reduce the required 35-foot critical line setback by 27.7 feet to 7.3 feet at the closest point, and to reduce the required 15-foot critical line buffer by 7.7 feet to 7.3 feet at the closest point for an existing unpermitted detached accessory structure shed at 2388 Solid Road. That's TMS number 33008000017 on James Island in Charleston County. The subject property and adjacent properties are located in the Solid Community Overlay Residential Area Special Management S3 zoning district. The 1.91 acre subject property, which is 0.52 acres of highland, contains a single-family residence that was constructed in 2001 and a swimming pool that was constructed in 2005 per Charleston County records. However, permitting for the residence began in 1999. Charleston County adopted required setbacks and buffers from the critical line in 2001. The critical line location was established by the South Carolina Department of Environmental Sciences, SCDES, Bureau of Coastal Management, BCM. The applicant's letter of intent explains, in quote, "We decided to install a work shed on the right side of the yard since we did not have enough room in the backyard to replace the shed. The shed is a manufactured shed that was delivered complete and placed on concrete blocks." Let's see. Zoom in a little bit there. So it's the structure to the north. You can see there. We visited the site on January 15th and posted the sign. This is the zoning ordinance requirements and the overlay map. And then this is the 300-foot radius map. And you could see the structure. It's kind of covered by the trees, actually, but it's there. Aerial, and then the posting, and a couple photographs of the structure here. Front of the house, and then the rear. Site plan again, and the plat. Regarding the approval criteria, there's 7. So we said that it may meet 1 through 4 and 7. It meets 5, and it does not meet 6. There was 1 letter of opposition received, and the board may approve with conditions, or deny the case based on the BZA's findings of fact unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the board decides to approve the application, staff has 2 suggested conditions. 1, the applicant shall use stormwater mitigation measures, such as the use of rain barrels or rain gardens to reduce the flow of stormwater into the marsh. 2, the applicant property owner shall obtain all required zoning and building permits for the unpermitted detached accessory structure shed. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Working. Do any of my board members have questions for staff? Mr. Brown?
This bridge that's right next to the shed, do we know what or why that's there? That might be a question for the homeowner.
I can answer that.
Well, hold one second.
Yeah.
We'll get to that when it's time for the public testimony.
Zoom in, yeah.
It's on the site plan. I mean, it's,
Yeah, I was trying to zoom in.
oh, okay.
It worked earlier when I did it.
Mr. Neal?
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Working, both of the trees that are here for variance is the 2 grand trees. I mean, basically, they're not encroachments. I mean, they're trying to remove these because.
They're not
So-
removing any trees.
What?
They're not removing any trees. But you're right, it is, the trees are kind of, when you look at the aerials, there are trees that canopy.
You jumped ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Mr. Neal, the last case was deferred. We heard that just before you got here.
outstanding.
So we're
I'll be quiet.
we're on the critical line.
I was like, I don't think we're removing any trees.
I was wondering where I missed it. Thank you.
Okay.
No problem.
Any other questions for staff? All right. Well, the applicant is here and is ready to give his presentation. So if you would state your name and address for the record and tell us why we should approve your request.
I'm Buster Altine III. I live at 2388 Soligree Road. Basically, put a shed on the side yard because to do my little projects, kind of ran out of room in the house. The wife kind of takes over the house, so it's my little getaway and opened up, you know, this can of worms here to come deal with this. So just asking for forgiveness and keep the shed there. As far as the bridge, if you want me to answer that question, the bridge connection is the original landowner across the bridge owned that lot, the back lot, and my lot. So he connected it back way before Hurricane Hugo and it was all just, that's how he was able to get to each lot, and he crossed, I mean, it's just marsh, but it's boggy. So he built that bridge, him and my father-in-law actually built that bridge together to make it connect. And then, so that's what it's doing there.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Altine?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I'm sure that my fellow board members will have questions for you. So who has the first question?
I'll go first.
All right, Mr. Trueslow.
Thank you for coming. You made a very good presentation.
Yes,
I've
sir.
got a couple of questions. And again, I can't do what's might be in my heart. I have to look at the law and try to comply with that. I'm trying to think of a word not sound pejorative. How did you get busted? How did they find out that this existed, that this shed was a problem?
I mean, I have my speculations, but let's just say there was a house being built across the street from me, and an inspector came by and I guess saw that the shed had been there for months. I mean, and said, "Hey, you're not supposed to have a shed on your side yard." So.
Okay. What, when did you put the shed in? What year?
It had to be the end of 23.
Okay. Why didn't you get a permit or seek?
I'm gonna plead ignorance on that. Everybody down there has sheds put in their yards, and I didn't even. We don't have an HOA or anything, and I didn't know we needed to do anything like that. It was more like an off the cuff thing, like I'm running out of room in the house to do anything I can do, so I just ordered a shed.
I'm married and I can identify with that. If you're required to move it, is it in the ground? Is it on the ground? Can it be moved? Can we get a forklift or something?
I didn't disturb any ground. It's on 6 cinder blocks. They laid the cinder blocks with some wood wedges and strapped it down. That's it. But I don't have anywhere to move it in my yard. I mean, I can't move it anywhere else. That's why I picked the spot that I did. Just my yard's shaped like the state of South Carolina, so it's wide on the front and comes to a point in the back. And it's surrounded by marsh and river.
I understand what you're saying. Sounds like we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yes, sir.
Sort of. All right.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
Maybe
Mr.
some
Neal?
of the
Yeah, I have just one
sorry, go
quick
ahead.
question. I'll follow up with staff afterwards, but it looks like it's tucked in there with 2 trees, and obviously you're in the canopy area of those trees. You probably did it to protect it. I mean, have you seen any decline in those trees or anything like that?
No, sir, and I use Winthrop Tree Service on those trees since I've lived there, and they come every 2 years and prune it. They actually have pruned it with the shed there, so.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean,
yeah,
you said it earlier that you didn't disturb the ground by putting a pad or anything
No,
like
sir.
that. You built it up, so
Right.
that should help it a lot.
Yes,
So-
sir.
Okay, I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Brown?
Are there any utilities power to the shed? And how does it, is it an underground power?
Yes, there's an underground power running conduit up to the shed and above then my panels up above flood.
And and I might need some help from Jenny here, the site plan, that shows where the wood shed's located. What's between where the shed is now and that edge of the critical line? You can kind of see a note pointing to it just below your shed there.
Yeah, there's just,
There's a planter. What's between kind of there and coming more towards the house, I guess is.
towards the house or towards the marsh?
No, just between where the shed is now and moving towards the house, towards that 35-foot critical line setback.
Well, it would be more into the limbs of the trees, and I wouldn't be able to get my camper back into my yard on the side house. I have to, it stays at the hunting club during hunting season. I bring it home and park it along the side house where my shed, between the shed and the house. Gotcha. I got a 32-foot camper.
So that's what you park in the grass is on the other side of the trees from the
Yes, sir.
from the shed. Okay. Mr. Jordan had a question. Go ahead.
Are you doing anything commercial with that building?
No, sir. I just hang out with my buddies.
Do you have any heavy equipment running in it?
No, sir. I put my golf cart in there, that's it.
Okay, and when you had the electrical done, did you get a permit and have a contract to do it?
I did. I had a licensed contractor do it, but I don't know if he permitted it or not. I wasn't there. So.
Where you live there?
Yes, sir, I lived there. I run my own business, so I'm all over the place.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Truslow?
I wanted to follow up on a couple of questions that were asked specifically about the trees. If you moved the shed or you were required to regrettably move the shed, would that harm the trees in any way?
Yes, sir. I'd have to So the way this shed sits, it sits below the canopy, but if I bring it forward, there's actual big substantial limbs that are lower that will impede.
All right. Number two, you said you had a golf cart or something
Yes.
out there. I asked you about the shed, and you said you didn't get it permitted. Then I think I heard you say you ran electrical
Yes,
service
sir.
out there?
From my house to the shed.
Did you get a permit for that?
I did not.
Did you have a contractor do this work, or did you do?
I dug it all. I dug the ditch. I have my own heavy equipment. Me and my son did that, and I just had an electrician come and hook it up for me. I pulled the wire and everything.
Okay, what sort of business do you do?
I own Bishop and Sons Plumbing and Piping.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to. I want to help you if I can.
I got you.
But I'm trying to understand. You knew you had to. I'm assuming you knew you had to get permits, and you just didn't do them. Why not?
It really never crossed my mind. My father-in-law's owned property down there, and we've done stuff over the years, and it just, I mean, I'm not trying to get away with anything. I got my hat in my hand. I'm just, never crossed my mind, really. Just kind of got it done.
Okay, one other thing that might fit in, it might not. You got shed, no permit, no building permit or anything. You got the electrical problem. Please, you don't have septic out there, do you?
I do what?
Septic, do you?
No, sir. No, sir. It's all public sewer. I don't have anything in there. I mean, no toilets or anything in there anyway.
All right. Thank you.
Go to Mr. Brown, then Mr. Seno.
So just power is in there?
What's that?
So there's just power in the shed?
Yes.
And one other question, where you park your camper, if you were to take the shed and move it where you park the camper, is there room where your shed is currently to park your camper under there?
No, sir.
The limbs
You'd
are
have
too
to
low,
see,
too
like,
skinny?
I'm sorry, the tree limbs come across. I have to stay off of those to get between my house and where I park my camper. I can't go any closer to the trees because it'll bust all the limbs up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like one little slot. That's why I tucked it into where I did.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. Seno?
I want to just refer back to an earlier point you made. I think you were asked if you move the shed, then you couldn't move it because of the trees, right?
Right.
But this was put in 2023, right? So somehow you got it in there. How did you get it in there with those? That tree is not grown in the last 2 years, right?
Okay. So the way these trees grow out, they grow like this. So the guy got the little dolly, went into my front yard, twisted it, and went between the two trees, and then they twist back and laid it sideways.
I see. So it could come out the same way it went in. That's what you're saying.
It could come out the same way it went in. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Jordan?
So being in the plumbing business, do you ever have to get permits for different jobs?
Yes, sir. I'm not denying I should have got I just didn't think about it. We
So
kind
you
of tucked
were aware
away.
of the permit process and doing
Yes, sir.
work?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Neal?
Yeah, one of the conditions that staff is recommending is that this building would meet all building requirements and permits and stuff like that. So I would imagine there'd be some strapping and things like that for hurricane stuff and
Yes.
the electrical stuff. So you're fine with going through that process to making sure that it's all
Right.
up
It's
to speed.
strapped down. The only thing I would have to do is call for an electrical permit, I would assume.
Right. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right. Well, thank you for your testimony this evening. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record and tell us why we should approve this application.
My name's Reed Madry. I'm Buster's neighbor. I'd like to say
What's your address? Go ahead and state your address, please.
2347 Solgree.
Thank you.
If you want to pull up the overhead, I can answer a couple of those questions that you might have and you might have. As for moving it around, I don't see it right now. I don't want to see it. So you move it, I see it. There has been, people have asked for variances on our neck of the woods. If you can see Buster's lot, there is no more wiggle room. I believe a neighbor of ours requested a variance for pool or something like that and didn't have any problem getting it. As for the permitting, I'd like to address some of the stupidity that I went through in getting permitting, specifically electrical permitting for my dock.
Well, we need to keep the comments for this specific to this application.
It does have a lot to do with what the structure would look like. If somebody came out and said, it needs to be this way, what they made you do is build a platform well above a line that I had to get. Well, what I ended up having to do was take it out of your jurisdiction. Okay? So I understand the doing things proper. That's what he does for a living. But I just want to get back to the other thing on moving it forward. It's tucked underneath that tree. It looks very good underneath there. And just because somebody came by and was worried about the marsh, they don't live on our island, and they were walking through this island. And his father-in-law actually helped build this island for a long time. And he passed away, but he was in front of this council talking to the same thing. And he's dug ponds and done a lot of work on this island. These are old families that have been on this island, and we just ask for a little bit of grace when a Karen walks through and wants to ruffle a few feathers for no reason. Let the man have his little outhouse, please. Or not outhouse, but
Do we have any,
there is no plumbing.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Neal?
I just have one question. Can you point on this aerial that you're looking at right now? Show me which vicinity is your house? Is it towards the?
Is it back this way?
Well, is it?
Which way is north? Okay, north.
Well, my question is that your house?
It's not on there. It's underneath the case.
Yeah.
So it'd be 007 in the upper right hand corner.
Up there. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not even close to it.
I'm close to it.
Yeah, I know he can't see it.
That whole thing right here is like one road. It's the only way in. The road cuts through my yard.
I was just making sure you're not a neighbor, as in next door neighbor.
Yeah.
You're a neighbor in the vicinity. You're not the next door neighbor.
So 025 also is part of our area too. So you see how 007 wraps around to 025?
Yep.
So the variance on 025 was put forth recently too, and that we were also offered by county council.
Well, I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
My question was, which property are you? Are you 007 or now are you telling me you're 025?
007.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? There is only one other person here, and I have a funny feeling that she is not here to speak in favor of this application. So, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? Ms. Kershaw, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm not a Karen. My name is Susan Kershaw. I live at 3605 Berry Hill Road on Johns Island. This shed endangers the marsh. The salt marsh is a fragile environment because of the sea level rise. In order to protect the marsh as a whole, we must protect each piece of it. The salt marsh is critical to our lifestyle in the low country. It is our connection with the water. It protects our low-lying properties and enables the ecosystems our economy relies upon. Criteria number 4 requires that the variance must not be approved if it will be of substantial detriment to the public good. I would like you to consider that the loss of any salt marsh habitat is a detriment to the public good. Research shows that in a period of accelerating sea level rise, the survival of salt marshes relies on upland migration. The grasses in place drown as sea level rises, and they need to spread to higher ground to migrate, to continue to exist. A vegetated buffer helps this process. If there are barriers to upland migration, marsh loss is nearly inevitable. According to NOAA, sea level rise in Charleston is accelerating. Between 2000 and 2014, we had 4 major tidal flood events. Since 2014, we have had 38. These statistics should create a sense of urgency to prioritize protecting our marsh. The rules are already in place to set the critical line and establish an undisturbed vegetated buffer zone upland of that line. We should enforce those rules for the public good. This shed eliminated a vegetated buffer. The shed should be removed and the buffer replanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kershaw. Does anyone have Mr. Jordan, you have a question for Ms. Kershaw?
Yes, ma'am. How far do you live from this property?
I live on Johns Island.
So how far would you say that is from his property?
10 miles?
10 miles. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Kershaw? Ms. Kershaw, we do thank you for your diligence in showing up for
Yep.
all of the variance requests associated with salt marsh buffers.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition to this request? All right, Mr. Altine, you have the opportunity to rebut Ms. Kershaw's statements if you so choose. If you have anything else you want to add to rebut what Ms. Kershaw has presented to this board.
Just that I appreciate what she's saying, but I'm not harming the marsh. I didn't disturb any soils. Nothing's getting dumped in the marsh. I am privy to wetlands. I land surveyed for years. I did all the Dunes West, Rivertown, Park West. I did all the boundaries, the topos, the wetland mitigations, everything. So I'm very aware of my surroundings, and I would never do anything to impede on the marsh whatsoever. So that's it, basically.
Thank you, Mr. Altine. Do we have any further questions for the applicant? All right, we shall now close the public hearing portion of this. Board members, do you have any questions for staff? There are no questions for staff, so at this point, we will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Truslow.
Reluctantly, my heart tells me one thing, my brain's telling me another. I regret, but I would make to in some ways, but we'd be compelled to move to deny this request. I would echo the reasoning that I've used before. I'm looking in specifically at the law that I've got to honor under Section 3.10.66. The need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. He was very honest. I mean, he was forthright and said that he put this in. He had a pool in 2005. Presumably, he got a permit. He's been a surveyor. I see. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish it all. All right. We have to be we have environmental laws for a reason. There was no electrical permit. There was no building permit. Zoning prohibits this. This was a move, or would be a move, from 35 feet buffer to 7.3. The applicant, again, has been very candid, says he's a surveyor, he's in the plumbing business, knows what is required and what's not. It's not I listened very carefully and heard it, and it went to my heart about this being a matter of grace. But we have to show proper respect for the law, and we can't encourage anyone, others, anybody, to have a disrespect for the law. So I would move to deny this request under criteria number 6. The need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. And this matter has been investigated, indicated that this did not meet the criteria, and I concur. So that's my motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Seidel. Do we have a second? We do not have a second, so I will entertain another motion. Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, in case BZA 1224-00833, this is a variance. Let me get my cheat sheet out here. I'll move to approve this variance request to reduce the 35-foot critical line setback by 27.7 feet to 7.3 feet at the closest point to reduce the required critical line buffer by 7.7 to 7.3. I've heard the testimony. I think this is a clear hardship case. There are a lot of conditions here that make me nervous on it, but I think because of this extraordinary property, this has been there. I think this would be difficult coming in and getting a permit now, but it's already there. This is a strange piece of property. I agree, it's right, it backs up into the marshlands, and that's why you have the setbacks. But there are no neighbors here that are corresponding neighbors that are objecting to it. The only neighbor that is here gave testimony that if we were to move it and he were not to get this space, it would probably be a worse visual eyesore. So condition number one, there are extraordinary exceptional conditions. I believe that there are. Condition number two that he has to meet is these conditions do not generally apply to the property in the vicinity. Again, this is a very unique piece of property. This property's got a pool on it. Where are you going to put this shed? We're going to dig up the pool and put it in the back so it's more visible. So I just think this property on Soul Agree, it meets that condition. Because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance, particular piece of property would prohibit it. So again, there's nowhere else really to put this shed. We don't want to put it out on the front of Soul Agree Road. I was concerned about the trees being possibly damaged, but the applicant mentioned that it was actually built up on center block, so that relieved me of my concerns there. The condition number four, the authorization of a variance will not be substantial detriment to the adjacent property or public good. Again, there's nobody objecting to this location from visibility and things like that. So I don't think it'll change the character of the zoning district. Condition number five, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance, in effect of which would be allow the establishment or use no otherwise. This is a personal shed. This is not a commercial activity. There was a question from a board member asking that, and this is just a storage shed, personal shed, a golf cart storage shed. So there's no commercial use for this. Item number six, the need for this variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. I just think there's extraordinary conditions here that if we were not to approve this, we would be doing more issues for it. So I don't have a problem with that criteria. Number seven, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plans or purpose of this ordinance. The Johns Island people are very vocal out there. This is a close-knit community. If this was a major issue back there, we would have a full room here. So if I get a second, I would like to include all of the staff conditions that are part of this application and recommendation from staff, and I'll move forward with that if there's a second.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We got a second from Mr. Jordan. All right.
I'd like to ask a question of staff.
It's not too late to have discussion amongst the board.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to answer, but they might.
Well, start your discussion, and we'll see if we need to get an answer.
Maybe you already covered this and I didn't hear it, but are there other properties nearby or on his street that have sheds?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was easy discussion.
Is there any other? Mr. Brown.
I might have missed it. Was there, I know we talked about this being up on some cinder blocks and it's strapped down. Is it strapped down to the point where if there's a flood?
I believe that part of this issue, and that's why I asked the applicant, was he okay with pulling whatever necessary permits there are to make sure that it's, going to have the electrical permits and plumbing and whatever's planned on going. If we approve this, that he's got to bring it up to building code.
Yeah,
And I have no
building will-
idea.
they'll inspect it.
Yeah, I
That's
have no
correct.
idea if he's got straps or anything like that, but by including that with what staff says, he's going to have to. Or he'll have to deal with the county, so that's why I was.
And
adamant about
special
including
condition
it.
number 1 also requires some stormwater mitigation measures so that runoff from the roof of the building is contained as well. So
Right,
there's-
so.
Right.
That, as long as he's going to have to pull some type of permit or have some final CO, even if he pulls a permit and it's already built, he's going to have to get a walkthrough, so. If there's nothing that's not right on it, he's going to have to correct it. And he's already agreed to correcting it. So that was one of my questions.
And it is a unique situation. You've got you only have a front setback and an OCR critical line setback on this
Right.
property, no side setbacks.
Right.
And so that further limits how you can
Use the
move things
property.
around the property. I have no idea if the zoning there allows storage in front of a house or not. We did not ask that question. Is there any other discussion?
To
Mr.
follow
Truesdale?
up on what Mr. Jordan said, he was at, and the question is whether there are other sheds in the area. Are there sheds, do we know whether these were sheds that were put in without a permit, without licensing? And were they before 2001, or were they been since then?
I don't have that information. Yeah.
I didn't think so. And same question as it relates to being within the critical area or the buffer.
Yeah, I know.
So this is the only one where we're.
Right, yeah.
with this.
And he has an active ticket. The code enforcement, gave him a ticket and he is going through court, but I think they're waiting for this hearing to happen.
Okay, so you could look at it from two different ways, whether it's a unique situation or not. And I'm looking at 2001.
I'm gonna shoot.
One other quick question, I guess. The flood, I see an AE 11. What's the finished floor roughly? Did we get any kind of?
Well, I think because it's not going to be something to live in, I think it doesn't have to be raised, except for like it will have to be strapped in like
Flood
for
vents and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely not. That would be a different story. That would be a different story.
Mr. Seidel, did you have something you wanted to add? You looked like you wanted to say something a minute ago.
Well, it seemed like that there's room to have the shed elsewhere within the critical line, but it's aesthetic reasons that it's located where it is. And I understand that. I mean, it's hidden by the trees, and you don't really necessarily want one of these things out near the front of your home. I understand that very well, but he testified that he parked his RV vehicle there, which aesthetically is not great either, I think, just to park there. So I'm troubled. I have a little troubled by the fact that we're okay to park an RV there, but there's a shed is not. I understand that it is permanent and the RV comes and goes. So I understand that aspect too, but it's
In the discussion with him, it sounded like there wasn't, if he took over the spot to place, if he took over the spot to place his RV with the shed, he wouldn't be able to park his RV anymore. I guess he could park it in his drive. I don't know about it in his
critical line
driveway.
area there.
Yeah.
It would seem like there would be room on the, I don't know, that's north side to do that
Yeah.
both. That's,
All right, is there any other discussion? We shall bring this matter to a vote. So all those in favor of the motion that has been made by Mr. Neal, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So we have, and all those opposed? So Mr. Truesdale is opposed. So the motion carries. Mr. Altine, your request has been approved. So you will receive within 10 working days via certified mail the final decision from staff. Please contact them for the next steps in the process. We thank you for your time this evening. And Mr. Kershaw, we thank you for what you bring to the table as well. Please continue to do so. We appreciate you being a part of the process.
Value of the property around.
Yeah.
So next month, hopefully will be a good month because we should have 9 people, 9 members, and hopefully everyone will be healthy.
Back to 9.
Yeah, we should be back to 9. So it's been a while since Jesse left, yeah. We do have our annual meeting that's starting at 3, and during the snowstorm, I picked some classes, so you'll get 2 credit hours for that.
That's it then. When's
Yeah.
the date of that?
2 out of the 3. 3 o'clock on March 3rd.
And you'll remind us?
Yes. I think I sent a calendar invite
Put it on
too.
your calendar.
I sent a calendar invite as well.
We are required to have,
Yeah, 3 o'clock, so right next door, and then we'll move over here at 5 for the public hearing.
So 3 down the hall.
It's just right here next door, yeah.
How many
Because we'll
hours?
have light dinner served.
how many hours do we have to have for the year?
So you're a new member and you have to have 6, but it's an orientation.
Well,
So these
and your-
technically don't count towards that, but yeah.
Your licensure will likely cover most of the hours.
Yeah, it's very
that-
easy to
that
get
you're gonna
credits
need.
for you because anything that's counts for architect counts for planning.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty
Oh, well,
easy.
I've made it already then.
Yeah, yeah. But you have plenty of time to do the 6 hours, and that's, I could email you that separate if I haven't already. I guess I haven't.
I have, but I didn't notice that.
Yeah, because you can't, the technical rule is that you have to wait 180 days after your appointment, so that's like July. That's why I have that. It's a little strange, but, what else? Okay, so we have 2 of the old business cases are coming back, the SDR and the patio. He reduced the patio, so it's out of the setback. And then 8 new business cases. So it's pretty full, but we tried our best to not.
And there's no way to start early because we have,
8 new or 8?
Totally, yeah, different. No, only 2. 2. Plus the 1 old. Yeah.
You'll be serving dinner then, is what you're saying.
I'm sorry? Yeah, 7.
so we should all enjoy getting out early tonight because it's not happening
Yes.
next month.
Yeah. But we will have dinner, so you'll have dinner during your training. So, and we'll vote for chair, vice chair, secretary, that thing. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Is there anything additional, Ms. Working? Ms. Clark, you have anything to add to the proceedings tonight?
Yeah. And we should have a new employee as well. Actually, hopefully 2, because you know that Jennifer Stiles has not been replaced.
No.
You didn't know Jennifer Stiles? Oh.
Where's your deputy or whoever?
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and
Oh,
adjourn
Andrew
us.
just
We are
came because I was
adjourned.
sick, yeah. Okay.